Why is it so important? Because again, if you read everything up to Job 14, all of them, people are calling out to God. God's heard it. God gave them an answer. I remember I'd go to my daddy. Daddy, blah, 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 and he'd say, go ahead and do it the way you want to do it, hardhead, because that's how you're going to do it anyway. He would try to tell me how to do it. My wife said one time very eloquently, she said, if I wanted your opinion, I'd give it to you. Because she didn't like my decorating sense. And I'm like, and I always go back to, do you remember Sassy Cow? Because Sassy Cow was her cow days in decorating. Every young girl, when she has a home, she goes through her cow days of decorating. She has what she thinks looks pretty at the time, and we had a cow thing that every time you open up the cookie jar goes, and everything was hosting cows. Everything was hosting cows. And now she's refined. She's flea market now. But the thing is that we think we have the answer. And we think that this is the answer. Everybody was crying out to God to solve the problem, to solve the problem, to solve the problem. We've all done it. We've all begged God to solve the problem. The problem is that who caused the problem? We did. We caused the problem. But why do we want God to solve it?
Want an easy out.
Huh?
Want an easy out.
We want an easy out. So God says, okay, here's your answer. You want the answer of how to fix this thing. He says, and I love this progression. This is the last time I'm going to read this progression to you because I've read it to you for about 6 weeks now. It says, sanctify ye a fast. Call a solemn assembly. Gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the house of the Lord your God and cry unto the Lord. It gave you a step. He said, first, sanctify a fast. First step, sanctify. So if he says sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the house of the Lord. What is the most important thing? The first thing he said. Anytime somebody gives you instructions, the first thing you say to somebody with instructions is what? The most important thing. So the first word he said is sanctify. What? Sanctify ye. In other words, you sanctify. You sanctify. God is laying out how to solve your problems. God is laying out how to do this thing. If you got a problem in your world, you got a problem in your life, you got a problem in the situation that's going on. I talked to a guy the other day, and we was talking about God. I said, you know, you can live a life without God. You can. Why would you choose to do it? Why would you choose to do it? Now, the thing is, you got to understand, within the Jewish people, and I tried again this morning, so I'm going to go another route on the whole video crap. I'm so fed up with it. The Jewish people, they believe that everything can be defined by 2 words. Kadesh, which means holy. Kol, which means mundane. So you got 2 things that happens in your world. You either got the mundane things or you've got the holy things. There's no gray things. There's no fine line. There's no division. If it ain't holy, it's mundane. If it ain't mundane, it's holy. No gray lines whatsoever. So you look at your situation. Is this situation a reflection of a mundane thing in your life, or is this thing a reflection of the holy things? If your life is mundane, then you're not holy. What does it say? You either be hot or cold. Because there is no lukewarm. He says fresh water and salt water. In other words, holy things and mundane things can't exist. So you're either going to be holy or you're not. There's no halfway. See, there lies our problems, that we believe that we can be halfway. We believe that I can serve God to this extent. I can do this, but yet I don't, I'm like, you can live that existence. The problem is that existence is a lie. can say, well, going to church is important. Yes, it is very important. Because if you go to the end of this thing, it says gather them where? It don't say gather them on the deer stand. It don't say gather them in the fishing boat. It don't say gather them here. It says gather them where? Where did it say? In the house of the Lord. Why? Because the house of the Lord is a focal point of energy. Point blank. It's a focal point of energy. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there I will be in the midst. This woman asked me, she said, so do you believe you can have church in the deer woods? Yes. You most certainly can. If you set apart a time. Do you realize it's a sacrifice? It is a sacrifice to be at church. You decided you're going to take this part. But the problem is understand something. Going to church does not make you holy. Going to church just fills the blanks and makes me feel better about being here. Why? Because there's nothing more depressing than looking out there and seeing two people, which we've done before. I remember back when we started this thing all off, I remember sitting there looking, Carrie, Erica, and Lance, and Zeke hadn't come back yet, and it's Amber. Who else was here? Harley, maybe? Maybe. And that was it.
Was here. Yeah, she was here.
And y'all know where we had church at? Back room. Why do we have church in back room? Because we could not afford to run heat. Couldn't afford it. But we had church, didn't we? We decided that we was going to build a church. And so the thing is that it's important. But there's steps that's going through this thing. It says, sanctify ye a fast. And we've talked about fasting. And it's like one time somebody said something, well, you know, what do you mean by it? I said, go back and look at the video. He said, well, I didn't want to, if I didn't hear you the first time, I damn sure don't want to hear you the second time. Then guess what? If I want to do something, Lance and I had to do something the other day. You know what Monty did? I looked at YouTube video of how to do it. And guess what it did, Carrie? It solved my problem. I wanted this stuff all video, so some of y'all might catch a whim and kind of go, wait a second, maybe there is a route to fix my problems in my world. Besides me keep trying to fix my problems in the world. Because I'm going to do the things that Monty says and how Monty wants to do. Now, I read an interesting thing the other day, and it's talking about caterpillars. Did you know that a caterpillar, when a caterpillar enters in and it creates its cocoon, it creates a cocoon. That caterpillar basically disintegrates and it changes. All the insides get all mixed up and it becomes recreated into another image. When it comes out, it's no longer that image. It's this image. The problem is that we, and this is the analogy I was reading about, and it's talked about that people, when they go through their cocoon stage, want to still come out and look like they did and act like they did before they entered this change part of their life. And guess what you can't do? You cannot do that. So the thing is that we've talked about this sanctify, we talked about fast, we're moving on sanctify here in just a second. It says an assembly. And I've talked about this, but I'm going to say it again because some of y'all wasn't here. It says, gather the elders. Gather the elders. Again, I find this strange because if a family or a house or something if or a nation was going, you would think that the elders would already have been here praying and being vigilant, doing their job. But where were the elders? Even during all this time of all the trouble, where were the elders? Someone said, well, can you miss church? Yes, you certainly can. Not if you're leadership. AJ, you have a reason, and I understand this. So please don't, you got a job. But my point is that, like I told my brother-in-law last night, it was awful tempting. But I am leadership. I told people the other day, if you're leadership, and if you legitimately have church in the Deerwoods, I don't have a problem with that. You got a church, man, you're having church. I don't care when you do it. I don't care. as long as you're setting apart a time of worship where everybody is together, everybody's there for that common purpose. But there is a huge difference between a church and an assembly. There's something about a church, it's that collective energy. It's the reason why we built all of this to have. In the old days, that's one of the first things they did when they went into the community was build the church. That's why the old church where our home was sitting at, that's where the old church was. They formed a church because that was central. When there was trouble, they had a bell. The bell was not to announce them when to come to church. Well, church is starting. Because if that's the case, if you heard the bell, church is starting, you got to drive and hit your wagon up. You're going to be there an hour later.
And they actually carried the tabernacle everywhere they went.
Yeah.
That's the first and last thing they did. They built it. That's the last thing they did was tear it down. And everywhere they went.
While they're wandering through the wilderness. But once they got set up, they said, okay, we're going to build a house to the Lord. Now, while the bell was there, it was to let everybody know, hey, we got troubles. There's a trouble. And so what they did, they rang the bell and people come there and said, hey, what's going on? AJ's house just caught on fire or whatever. And we may not know it, but hey, let's go over there and help them out, take care of it. Let's go over there. It was a warning call. So here it is. The elders are, back then, it's the same problem we have today. The elders are somewhere else. But not just the elders, all of the inhabitants. Get the people to church. As I said last week, if you're a parent, if you're a model, if you're a role model, whatever you are, if you are not here, you are telling somebody else that, well, he's not here, I don't have to be here.
That's okay.
For me, there is no option. There is no option. The thing is that there's a lot of days I would love to miss because that's my nature. Enough about that. Sanctified. The first word. We've been building up this thing called fasting. Sanctification. It means to set apart, be holy, to consecrate, to pronounce, to make clean. What do y'all think about that? What sanctification? So in other words, you're going to set something apart. Now remember, it said to sanctify ye a fast. So that tells you that the first step to all this, to solving your problems, to solving the nation's problem, is to what? Look at yourself. Look at yourself. You have to look at yourself. If we take this first letter, this is Qadesh or Kadesh, which means holy. We talked about this last week. This is Kaf. It means monkey. It means eye of the needle. It means back of the head. It means holy. Sanctification means you're making a decision because everything is one or the other. It's either Kadesh, which is holy. You're either a holy person or you're a Qual, which means a mundane person. So you're one of the two, right? So then how do we make a decision? Because the thing is that as an example, if this means monkey, it means, this is the first thing, because remember, it reads this way. The thing is that we'll start with monkey. It's basically, we look like Christians, kind of. A monkey has similarities to us. But there are certain things that are different. As an example, the tail. The tail looks like us. If you feel back, you have a tailbone. But the problem is that we're different. We're set apart. The thing is with a cough, it's one of the few things that actually has this line. We talked about it last week. Because we're a monkey, because the thing is that we have the potential up here, shows potential. We have the potential for greatness, for holiness. We have that potential. But the problem is, AJ, we have a tail that's sticking down in the mundane. Every one of us has a tail that we drug, or we still drag, every day into the mundane. It could be your temper, Dory. It could be your mouth, Monty. It could be your attitude, Lance. It could be whatever you do. Whatever it is that you do that you know is not right. Whatever it is, that's your tell. That's what makes you lukewarm. That's what makes this water become mixture. You're either holy or you're not. And what it is, if you would be honest with yourself, now here's the next thing. Being honest with yourself.